Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Damasco, and I chose President Ronald Reagan, and he served as president from 1981 to 1989. This State of the Union speech that I chosen takes place in 1988. The reason why I chose this State of the Union speech, which was because it was towards the end of a decade of so much tension between the USSR and the US, and is mostly commonly known right now as the Cold War. Um, I chose this State of the Union that took place in 1988 because it was a few months after the agreement that he had with the Soviet Union. This agreement pretty much banned nuclear missiles and pretty much ended the Cold War. Um, Also, I chose this speech because it was at the end of an important decade, which would eventually set up the 90s and the future political problems that the 90s would evidently have to resolve with the future president. Um, Two key objectives that he speaks about is the Strategic Defense Initiative and a global democratic revolution. These two key factors are still important to this day, specifically with the global democratic revolution that's going on. To this day, we have countries all over the world that are still not democratic but are communist. Most recently with North Korea. North Korea is a communist country who has tensions between South Korea, and they've had they've been threatening a lot of the countries and their next door neighbors, South Korea, into a nuclear battle. And these last couple of years, there's always been tension between the U.S. and the um, North Korea. And it's so fascinating to see that there's still this tension, not with communist Russia as it was in the 80s, but now in modern times is North Korea. So it's pretty interesting to see that something that happened in the 80s is pretty much happening right now as we live on. So President Ronald Reagan in this speech pretty much wants to set forth a future in which we don't have to live most of these things that they lived in the 80s, especially the Cold War. And as it seems, it just keeps on repeating the same problems over and over again in our country. Um, but in his speech, he pretty much focuses also in how there's less unemployment during that time, and nobody would have seen the pandemic happening. And it's crazy to see that there's so much unemployment going on right now, but we're finally getting out of this pandemic and everything is turning back around again, which hopefully become better. And yeah, I believe Ronald Reagan was pretty much ahead of his time. You know, he had a way of words in his speech. He has a way of getting to people's hearts. Because if you guys didn't know, he was an actor before getting into the political game. Before he was president, he was governor of California, and then eventually he became president for the majority of the 80s. Um, but yes, this is my reason as to why I chose the State of the Union speech of Ronald Reagan in 1988. Thank you.